In today's society, if a man goes up to a woman and asks her for her number or Snapchat, he's looked at as like a creep and a pervert. But if a woman goes up to a man, it's 100% okay, which is not okay to me.
How likely are men to have sex with a lonely woman out of pity?
I guess it depends on who you ask. I'd say pretty likely.
How likely are women to have sex with lonely men out of pity?
Oh, unlikely. They just want men that are rich and famous.
In a recent podcast, the researchers shared some startling insights from a study conducted to see the number of men who approached women this year. Of the 50% of men that approached women, only half, 25% of total, got some sort of connection like a phone number or a date. Of those, only about 20%, 5% of the total, got a long-term relationship out of it. Why do men not even attempt to date, commit to, or be in a relationship with women anymore? We have the answer right there in front of us. Men, you see, just don't get it anymore. They don't see the point of pursuing women just to be rejected by them. People who went through puberty in the Instagram years, or just texting both sexes, are terribly uncomfortable with face-to-face conversation. They just freak out. God forbid you call someone, much less approach someone. It's so sad and 10 steps backward with just taking face-to-face. I see teens avoiding eye contact or panicking when they have to just speak to customers at their jobs. Men have borne the burden of providing for women in every manner conceivable for a very long time. They've taken on the duty of approaching women, making the first move, and taking the initiative in every way possible, only for women to play hard to get at every opportunity, use men for their material gains, and discard them when they notice a better and wealthier man paying attention to them. Men are disgusted to the core at how women monkey branch off to other men as a result of their hypergamous nature. A core part of female nature is hypergamy, which means they date up the socioeconomic strata. It's culturally discouraged to approach women now. 10 years ago, I was able to approach a little bit. Some women would still complain about it and call you a creep, but since dating apps were not the norm back then, there was this general understanding that men had to approach women for society to function properly. This might be great for them, but it's demoralizing for men. Imagine a guy who makes just enough money to pay his bills, put decent and healthy food on the table, have a nice car, and a decent apartment, and do everything he can to accommodate the woman he loves. He uses his life savings to buy her a diamond ring, help her settle in with him, pay for her lifestyle, and even take her to other cities. He's doing everything he can to make her happy. Now imagine, that woman dumps her boyfriend and starts dating the wealthy billionaire full-time. She just discards the guy who truly loved her with all his heart and just jumps on a chance to be with the wealthy guy. And guess what? That wealthy guy then dumps her after a few months, leaving her stranded and begging her old boyfriend to move back in with him. This sounds like a drama or movie, but it's a common reality. This is what men are facing every single day. Men are supposed to act traditionally and roll out the red carpet for women in every way possible, while women are okay mistreating, misbehaving with, and discarding guys just because they have 100 thirsty simps lusting after them. We all know how things change as life goes on. And one thing that has changed in the dating game is that men are no longer approaching women like they used to. Just go check out your TikTok or YouTube feed, and you'll find dozens of women talking about why men need to approach them like they used to. These women are telling men that they will not budge unless they're nicely approached and then asked out. What these women lack is basic empathy. They do not understand where the men are coming from in this situation, why they're not approaching women, and why even more men will stop approaching women in the future. Men are sick of being misled, turned down, used, exploited, cheated on, and ignored. They've faced all of this in the last couple of decades, and they don't want to face this anymore. Why do guys no longer approach women the same way they used to? Before social media, smartphones, and the internet, there was no direct method to contact women no matter how far away they were from you. Men used to physically approach women and express their interest in them back then, since there was no other method to engage with women. In the modern world, both men and women have access to each other from anywhere and at any time. So, why aren't men approaching women anymore? I think it's because men usually see the pros and cons of everything before they take any action. The disadvantages of approaching women today outweigh the advantages by a wide margin. The benefits of approaching women are not seen by men. Today, approaching women nearly always results in rejection, being called a creep, or just being ignored and shunned by society. Why? Because most males are perceived by women as predators or desperate men. They will be okay if they already know a guy and want him to contact them, but that is another matter. But it is not worthwhile for a male to approach an unidentified woman. The risks are too great. Social humiliation and complete ignorance, along with a general fear of getting turned down, just seem too risky. The average woman would embarrass the average guy more frequently than not if he politely approached her to start a discussion. I saw a video where a man tries to speak to a lady without being impolite or weird, and she just makes a complete fool of him. As I saw this unfold, I found myself wondering why in the world I would want to approach a woman today. We also need to realize that various guys are treated differently by different women in order to understand why this is taking place. Here's the problem. Women expect men to approach them the same way they've been approaching them in the past. But in the past, circumstances were different. Men and women were more comfortable in their own skin and in their own gender. Men knew they were responsible for providing for women, and women knew they were responsible for taking care of the men and for giving birth to children and raising families. So, the norm at that time allowed men to approach women and allowed women to expect that men would approach them. Approaching women was a thing of the past. But the reality is, that isn't anymore. Women don't realize that reality and expect the same royal treatment they used to get back then. They're so used to being handed over everything by men that they feel entitled to it all, even now. And that is the reason why men don't approach women anymore. It's because reality has changed. Why should men approach women when the circumstances are not the same anymore? Feminist women talk about equality all the time and expect to be treated differently when there's no reason for men to do that. Women are not okay with men being the providers and almost want to take a man's place in society, yet they still want the goodies of the past. It's the definition of hypocrisy, if you ask me. So, why would I or anyone put myself through something like this? It doesn't make sense. Also, I think a very high percentage of women are just not even worth approaching anymore. I think that's what they want, to be publicly valued by men, so they can show off in their circles, humiliate the guy, and feel validated, which isn't happening for her, because there aren't any more guys approaching them. Men are now starting to wake up and understand all of this. They don't have time to waste worrying about women who make interacting with them pointless. Women don't appear to be aware of how essentially rigged the game is against guys. They desire what they desire. Men will also no longer engage in accepting the unsupportive behaviors of women. They're done being used for nothing. This is happening in 2023, and I predict this will keep on happening for the next 10 years. After that, there will come a time when it will be normal for guys to not approach women, and women will have to really work to get a man's attention to get a bit of the free validation they used to get before. The fact is, women long for recognition. They seek approval. Without having to put in any effort, they want everyone to compliment them on how terrific they are. As the MGTOW community expands exponentially, more and more men are learning the truth about the true nature of women and how they naturally depend on men's labor and desire their free privileges. With all the guys from all over the world sharing their accounts of women's betrayal and disloyalty, women really need to reflect, lest they eventually find themselves begging men for the attention they already have and are presently receiving for free. No matter how autonomous, enlightened, or free women grow, their first concern will always remain affirmation. They will constantly want approval from men and other women for all they do. Thanks for watching Man Reacts. Show us your love and support by liking this video, sharing it with your friends, and subscribing to the channel. Support us and help us spread support for men around the world. Do comment and share your thoughts. We're always up for a healthy debate and discussion.